Hi, my name is Aaron. This is my show, Reeducation, and today I'm going to talk more about Justin Trudeau, because it's Justin Trudeau week. Yay! Now, in the previous installments, I did have a bit of a disclaimer, and I'm going to continue that disclaimer now because I assume that I'm going to get a lot of new Canadian viewers. And for those of you who don't know, I am not a liberal or a conservative. I am against all unjustified hierarchies. I think that they are all damaging. It doesn't matter if they are in government or in business. I think they all should be questioned, and I think they all should be dismantled. And if there are any that we deem to be useful, they should continuously be questioned and dismantled when they are no longer useful to us. That being said, let's get started. So the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau's Liberal government, has decided that it's a good idea to ban assault-style weapons. What does that mean? Who knows? Are they actually going to do it? Who knows? They just said that they were going to ban pistols as well, and they decided to walk back on that too. So I think that it'll be interesting for me to give a bit of my own analysis. Now, the last time I talked about guns, I explained to people that I was kind of torn. I wasn't really sure which direction to go, if I wanted to be on the side of gun control, or if I wanted to be on the side of gun freedom, of everybody being able to own a gun. And now that I've thought a little bit more about it, I'm no longer torn. I'm pro-gun. Very, very much pro-gun. Now, if you want to know more about my position on gun control, you can check out the videos linked in the description, and hopefully that'll inform you a little bit more on my take on things. But as far as I'm concerned, none of this has anything to do with whether or not guns should be regulated or not. This has to do with theater. It has to do with the spectacle. Because of course it does. Everything has to do with the spectacle. And again, if you want to know more about the spectacle, I'll link that in the description box below as well. The argument, the fight against gun control in the United States, the Second Amendment debate, is nothing more than a sales tactic. They're trying to sell you on two things: fear and security. Of course, I'm going to talk more about that in a second, but let's first go through a bit of a definition. What exactly are we talking about when we're talking about an assault weapon? Well, we don't really know. There's no legal defining term that tells us what we mean when we say assault weapon, at least not in Canada. The closest thing that I could find to a definition is a semi-automatic rifle that resembles military equipment or has had some sort of previous military use, which, if you know anything about firearms, it's hard to find any firearm that hasn't been used in the military in some way. That's kind of how they come to be. So since there's no real definition on what an assault-style weapon is, we tend to just classify weapons directly by name or by platform, such as the AK-47 platform in Canada is a restricted firearm. The same thing with an M16 platform. You're not allowed to get any one of their variants, except for the ones that you are allowed to get. There are some AK-47 and M16-like variants that you can own in Canada. They just have to be named. So instead of going after a classification that actually exists, or maybe even the power of the rounds that are in the rifle, we're going after something that we just made up, that inevitably boils down to, if it looks scary, it should be illegal, which doesn't make much sense. Those variants that I talked about a moment ago, the ones that you're actually able to get from the restricted list, the only real difference between those weapons and the ones that you're not allowed to get is the aesthetics. It's the fact that they don't have superficial things like pistol grips or collapsible stocks, or if they have wooden furniture, which is all of the pieces that are attached to the gun that are made out of wood or plastic usually. And don't dog me about using the term gun or firearm interchangeably. It's something that we, where I live, happen to do all of the time, so it's just common lingo. But if you happen to be pedantic as fuck and you call things by specific names because of where you happen to live, then please just use those terms. I don't want to have a semantic argument with somebody in the comments section. So what exactly happens when you ban an assault weapon, or any weapon at all, or anything at all? It just creates a black market. It just creates prohibition. And prohibitions don't work. We've seen that thousands and thousands of times in the past. Every time you put a prohibition on something, it inevitably just increases the sales of that thing. And here's why. You criminalize law-abiding citizens from owning something that is their personal property, and you inevitably make them into a criminal, which, without a question, ends up forcing many law-abiding citizens to sell their legally, or at least formally legally owned weapons to criminals so they themselves aren't charged with a crime. And the hilarious thing about all of this is that you can't stop criminals from doing criminal acts. That's why they're criminals. Liberals like to think that somehow banning weapons is going to stop criminals from getting weapons, and it doesn't. And even if it did some sort of prohibitory measure towards people not using those weapons in crimes as often, okay, maybe, but you're not solving any real problem. All you're doing is just banning the stick that somebody's using to hit you with. And that doesn't stop them from being violent. It just makes them go looking for another stick. And conservatives, for real, the only argument that I've actually heard you give on this point is one that is so myopic, so useless, so pointless that it actually bothers and hurts me. You say that weapons should be legal so long as they aren't in the hands of criminals, like gang members. Okay, my brilliant, large-brain friends, how exactly would you stop criminals like gang members from getting those weapons? I'm waiting because a lot of you, if not all of you, would say that you can't just stop criminals from doing crime, they're going to do crime anyway, so taking away their guns isn't going to stop gun crime. And you'd be right. There is physically no way to stop criminals from getting their hands on weapons. And even if you were to completely ban all the weapons, they would still find a way to get them. In Mexico, right now, there is only one legal gun store, and it's in a military base. People from all over the country go there to buy weapons, and they sell about 35 of them a day. 35. Illegally, on the black market, in that same day, they sell something like 600 of them. And they're a lot cheaper, and nobody's asking for any background checks or IDs. And if your argument happens to be, well, we need to stop these guns at the border, how would you do that? How would you do that exactly? Because, like I just said, in Mexico, they're getting 600 guns sold every single day. And they happen to be all coming from the United States, the same place where our guns come from. And in Mexico, they have the strongest, or if not one of the strongest, most militarized borders in the world. It doesn't stop or even come close to stopping the amount of guns that are going from the United States into Mexico. And you can make an argument saying that, oh, well, it's easy to transport things from the United States to Mexico. It's just hard to get things from Mexico into the United States. Okay, fair enough. What about transporting anything from the United States to Canada? You do realize that even if we're to assume that it's easy to get things across the border here or there, you have to agree that there's at least a barrier in place between Mexico and the United States. I'm not making a judgment call on that. I think that the barrier is stupid, and personally, I'm against those sorts of borders. But you can't even come close to denying the fact that Canada and the United States don't really have a border at all. It's one of the longest borders on the face of the earth, and at some points you can cartwheel across it. The only thing that's dividing us from the United States is a cut line in some trees. There's literally nothing stopping you from just walking across the damn thing. So if you really think that you're going to stop the illegal flow of weapons into Canada, you have got to be completely insane. They talked about how it was unfeasible to build a wall across the United States border between Mexico and there because of how big and arduous the task would be. And the Canadian-United States border is many times that size. You're never going to be able to stop. You're never going to do it. It's literally impossible. You're not going to stop it that way. But what you can do is you can actually educate and inform people on weapons, on firearms. Like I said before, you didn't stop the problem of people smoking by banning cigarettes. You didn't stop the problem of alcoholism by banning booze. You don't stop these problems with prohibition. You stop them with education. But like I said at the beginning, this isn't about solving the problem. It's about selling you fear and security. Liberals fear gun violence and are given security by gun regulations. And conservatives fear gun regulations and are given security by owning guns. And as long as you're able to play those two sides, as long as you're able to force those two sides to fight against each other, then you're inevitably going to galvanize your base and make them want to vote for you. In October, there's going to be another Canadian election, and Justin Trudeau wants to run on the platform of security and fear, just like the Conservatives do. It just depends on who they want to make feel secure and who they want to make feel scared. This is all part of the spectacle. It's just an illusion. It's a way to make you feel like you're being personally attacked, so you'll vote for one party over the other. And I'm going to tell you right now, neither one of those parties are going to fix any of your problems. At least that's the way I look at it. My name is Aaron. If you do get a chance, please check out my Patreon. Every dollar does help fund this show. And that's the end of Trudeau Week. Thanks for watching.